Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following episode. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me is Andrew Meadows.
We are here in the not in the flesh, virtually discussing a movie this afternoon.
Oh my goodness, it's almost like we've done that 189 times previously, but we're about to do it for 190th time. We're going to talk Ghostbusters Afterlife, the sort of third Ghostbusters film, although not technically. I'll get into that momentarily. But yeah, it's another movie that's been long overdue, long delayed from some COVID issues, but it finally made its way into cinemas, and let's just say we ain't afraid of no ghosts, So
and curiously enough, there's a podcaster in this movie.
There's definitely some representation of podcasting in this movie. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. Excuse me, let me redo the intro. Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. My name is Podcast, and joining me is someone else also named Podcast. How's that? Is that pretty good?
That sounds pretty good.
Pretty good way to do it. I'm excited to talk some Ghostbusters. I have an affinity for the original two Ghostbusters films, and I rewatched them in preparation for seeing this new one. So I'm all in on the Ghostbusters thing right now. I really am genuinely very excited to talk about Afterlife. So before we do that, why don't we say a couple things? First of which is Andrew visited me in Philadelphia. It was very exciting.
I did.
And, if you want to hear the details of all that, listen through the entire episode until we get to that point, or use the timestamps.
Or use
the choice is yours.
Timestamps.
But
it was very interesting indeed. So if you would like to listen to it, those are your two options.
Suffice it to say, it was a very, very fun time having Andrew and Sarah up here. It was fun. But yeah, details later. I wanted to flag it up front. Other thing is, I just wanted to issue a quick apology for some audio snafu issues that we had with the Eternals episode. We still really don't exactly know what happened. Enrique's mic had some issues where it cut in and out. And Andrew and I heard it live while we were recording, but we thought it was just his internet, dropping connection. Turns out it actually just recorded that way. So some of it was a little wonky sounding, cutting in and out and kind of peaking out. My hope is that it was cleaned up enough in the final edit that it wasn't too much of a distraction or too much of an issue. But nonetheless, I figured I'd say something about it here as well. So I think that brings us to the next part of the podcast, where either Andrew or myself, either podcast or podcast, offer a fun fact for the listeners. Does that sound good to you, Podcast?
That sounds good to me, Podcast. Okay. And I will serve it up to you, Podcast, to leave a fun fact, because you are our resident Ghostbuster expert.
Like I said, I'm like all in on this. So you're like, why don't you do this one? Okay. All right, I can do that. So, what I was saying that I was going to get into momentarily is the fact that this is effectively Ghostbusters 3, right? It's not it's not like a picking up right on the heels of Ghostbusters 2 type sequel or anything along those lines. It's very much what I would say is Ghostbusters: The Force Awakens. You know what I mean? It's take it to a new generation, a few years later, but get the original crew involved in some capacity, and and it's still within the same world and stuff like that. But Ghostbusters 3, generally speaking, has had a very troubled production history, so it's kind of a wonder that this film actually does exist as a proper, true sequel. So I won't get into the super duper nitty gritty of all of it, but they tried to do a new one in the 90s called Ghostbusters 3 Hellbent, where the Ghostbusters were going to be transported to an alternate universe version of Manhattan, apparently called Manhattan, where they were going to fight the devil. That didn't get off the ground.
That would have been cool.
pretty badass stuff. And I think it was kind of a similar idea that we kind of see here, where it's a passing of the torch type thing with the original Ghostbusters, bringing in some new people. Rumors suggested Chris Farley, Chris Rock, and Ben Stiller were apparently going to be some of the new Ghostbusters, which would have been fun, definitely. And then that didn't happen. Moving into the early 2000s, you know, they were gonna, yeah, bring him in. He would have been the fourth. He would have been great. Moving into the 2000s, they you know, talks continued. They were going to make more. They're going to do it. They're setting up writing and directing and blah blah blah. Dan Aykroyd's, you know, helping out with the screenplay, and then Bill Murray's like, actually, I don't fucking want to play in this movie. So they're like, well, fuck you. We'll just replace you with someone else. And then apparently they're going to make him into a CGI ghost. Anyway, none of that happened, obviously, either. And so they you know, and well, I guess we should say they had a big hurdle to clear when, unfortunately, original Ghostbuster passed away. The original Ghostbuster of Egon Spengler, Harold Ramis, the actor, passed away in 2014. So that threw a big wrench into things and stuff. So at some point, they made the executive decision, let's just do something different. And so Ghostbusters 2016 came around, which was a reboot, not a real sequel, although it featured cameos from the original actors and such. But that one was not super well received.
This is the one with
this is the Ghostbusters with women in it,
with Chris Hemsworth.
With Hemsworth in it, Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, Leslie Jones. I know we've at least mentioned it in passing. Obviously, that would have been before we started the podcast when the movie came out. Ghostbusters Answers the Call is how they later marketed it. It's fine. It's like fine. It's not good, but it's like fine. But it didn't exactly revitalize the franchise, I think, in the way that they perhaps wanted it to. And so, you know, you kind of go back to the drawing board and comes Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Question.
Where you have, you know...
Before you continue on.
Yeah. Go for it.
There was a title card in the beginning for Ghostbuster Corp or something along those lines. It's like a production company. Yeah. Did they produce Ghostbusters Answers the Call? I never watched the movie.
Yes. Yeah. It's like a production company that Sony made in like 2015, basically before that one was coming out. I know Dan Aykroyd's part of it. Looks like Ivan Reitman, who's the director of the first two Ghostbusters films, also is like a part of it. So it's basically anything Ghostbusters related. I think basically they have oversight of. So
they were a part of that one, though.
They were, yes, okay. That's correct.
Well, they're also a part of this one,
and they're also a part of this one. But yeah, basically. They tried and failed, I guess you could say, with the reboot, and so, you know, it was back to basics. You know, let's bring it back to the original world of the Ghostbusters and continue it, and, you know, with the new modernized kind of direction of you know, the characters are obviously a little older. The world's changed a little bit, you know, and what does that look like? So that's what Ghostbusters Afterlife explores, and you know, that's what we'll explore when we get a chance to talk about it a little bit later. My second fun fact, I'll offer this very quickly. The director of this film is Jason Reitman, and he is the son of Ivan Reitman, who is the director of the two original Ghostbusters films. So I think that's kind of a unique little thing, too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool wrinkle.
And he also appeared as a child in Ghostbusters 2 at the party scene in the beginning when I think it's Winston and Ray. They show up at a kid's party, and you know, they're struggling to make ends meet. So it's a funny scene. But anyway, that's what I got. Those are the fun facts that I can offer up. And so, how would you like to get into some news? Does that sound like a good?
Yeah, let's dive into the news.
Okay. So we're gonna start big. We've got some big news to talk about right up front. We're not gonna waste any time. We talked about Hayden Christensen joining the Ahsoka TV series as Darth Vader or Anakin, however that's going to be. And now we're getting some other Rebels characters that are hopping into the fray. So Natasha Bordizzo is going to be playing the character of Sabine Wren in Star Wars Ahsoka. which marks the first appearance for this character in live action, jumping from being obviously one of the main characters in Rebels, one of perhaps the best characters in Rebels, to now, showing up in this, presumably a little bit older. Again, same thing of this show theoretically, I think, would take place in a post-Return of the Jedi universe, so Sabine's got to be a little older. That seems pretty big casting news to me. You're more the Rebels expert. I might be the Ghostbusters expert, but you are certainly the Rebels expert, given that you've actually watched all of the show. So how do you feel about this?
Well, I thoroughly enjoy Sabine's character. I think she is. She just has like a wealth of depth. I think that's appropriate. She's a Mandalorian. But she's an outcast. She's a rebel, if you will, amongst her people.
You could say that, sure.
But she finds her way in a huge way in Rebels, in a way that it made me tear up. Which is no secret in this podcast that I am. I get drawn emotionally to the characters, and I think that. I'm just a huge fan of her character, so I know nothing of the woman that will be reprising the role of Sabine. I don't know a whole lot about her at all, but so long as she's a talented actress and she can portray the depth, and so long as she's given, it's important to just give your actors and actresses like the content they need to draw into, so long as she's given that depth to pull in on the character, I think it's important. But I do think that there's a lot of stuff that she can draw on from the existing material, in order to make that character what she needs to make it. So, I'm excited. I'm excited to see her in live action, and
Yeah, I'm with you in the sense that I have no familiarity with this actress, but I can say that visually she feels like a very good representation of Sabine jumping from animation to live action. Like, obviously the animation's stylized to a certain sense, but it feels like good visual casting. Obviously you need a little bit more than that typically, but I and Dave Filoni and company, I think we trust. I think that it's exciting for them. It's exciting for him particularly to be able to continue his story of these rebels with an Ahsoka TV show set in a different time period than when that show was set. I think it's just very cool all around that he's getting the opportunity to do this, and bringing more characters to come from animation initially into live action. It's just, I don't know. You gotta love how interconnected the Star Wars canon can get sometimes. I think it's just really neat how they do it. So I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see what she brings to the table as Sabine. I'm very excited for this TV show. This Ahsoka show might be like my most hyped like Star Wars TV show. Like I want more Mando. I'm excited for Boba Fett, but Ahsoka to me feels like I don't know. It feels.
It's a cool way to go.
I just think I'm the most excited for it. So yeah, that's that. And we'll jump over to some other sci-fi TV show news, and that is that buried in a article about the Wheel of Time, apparently Amazon has been making some moves because they've got infinite sums of money, and they are nearing a deal to make a Mass Effect television series based, of course, on
oh my goodness.
Mass Effect video game series, of which I guess there are technically 4 entries, and it's a big one. Got the Legendary Edition very recently. I myself, I played a lot of the first Mass Effect. I basically right about to finish it, and I haven't touched it in a month because that's how I play video games. I'm adulting very well, but Mass Effect is pretty. Well, you need a lot of money, so Amazon's probably a good place to start with that sort of thing. But I feel like there's a lot of potential with the Mass Effect TV series. You yourself have played the trilogy, at least some of the games in the trilogy, right?
I played 2 of the 3. never finished it out.
So probably played the first two. You skipped 3.
I played the first 2.
That's a fine ending point, to be honest.
With, I don't know, like it's super compelling. Like the game design and the way that they the continuation of the characters between 1 and 2 and your decisions between 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3. I feel like that was, I mean, they paved the groundwork for that kind of video game.
Right, we probably see that more often now, but at the time that those games came out in like the late 2000s, like that was really awesome to kind of see how that all played out. And like not amazing as it turns out in 3. It turns out most of your decisions didn't actually matter, but that's mostly a fault of I think them not knowing how to end it. But mistakes are made. They can be fixed though for a TV show. And
the IP itself is incredibly intriguing, right? So
of course.
Amazon picked up something else we'll talk about. They picked up The Expanse. And I feel in like a lot of ways, The Expanse kind of feels like Mass Effect.
Totally. It's like a more grounded version of it, you know what I mean? Like Mass Effect is full on, interacting with aliens, traveling through these Mass Effect relays to different galaxies, etc. The Expanse is very much
it feels like
tethered to our solar system,
and it feels like The Expanse is like Mass Effect 1.0, right? Like it feels
it's first setting the stage, eventually you get there and then
you get to Mass Effect, right? But now you're just at The Expanse.
You got to figure out how to fucking, travel through space and shit,
Exactly.
Yeah. I agree.
So it feels like the very entry levels of Mass Effect. With that being said, I think the Mass Effect is super compelling. I think if you can craft I definitely think there's a story that could be crafted for live action television around it.
Honestly, the story of the first game is there for you. I think it's the best story of any of the Mass Effect games.
And you can continue that story.
Improved, but you can adapt that story. You can pick up a little before and tell, the story leading up to the discovery of the Mass Effect relays, and then how that impacts, Earth and human society and whatnot.
There's a wealth of shit.
You can keep it going. I mean, it's a treasure trove of sci-fi awesomeness. Like honestly, it's got such cool lore, cool setting, cool design. Just everything about it is fucking awesome. I could just imagine the sound of the Reapers just through Andrew's massive fucking subs, just like giving you a headache, because it's so just ridiculous. Like
fucking subsonic shit.
I'm imagining like Denny Villeneuve, levels of like. Of design, sound design, like the Blade Runner, Dune type stuff, like that's the potential that this series has.
Oh,
so
man.
It needs a lot of money to, I think, reach its potential. But like I said, it's Amazon. They better not cheap out because
they're putting people on fucking Mars. Maybe
I know
one
that
day
they can afford it. So if they let this series, if they can make this series even close to its full potential, it could be a game changer for like sci-fi television. So I hope that. Mass Effect has been one for me that like has always been like a pipe dream of like this. I would love to see them take a crack at making this into a movie. I think maybe even TV shows, maybe even more suited. It's just that for a long time, TV shows always were pretty limited with budgets, but we're kind of getting to the point where the distinction between the two is pretty blurry. So do it right, and I'm in the bag for it. So I hope that, if this deal does come together, which it probably will because money talks, that Amazon just does what they did with The Expanse, apparently, and just, make a fucking good show, make a good space,
and we'll
sci-fi
see.
show.
I don't think we've seen, have we seen an Amazon? I'm 2 wines in. I'm a bottle and a half in. Let me rephrase that. And a bottle with dinner. Okay. So let me just let me pump the brakes. I'm not 2 wines in. I'm a bottle and a half in. So which is probably 4.
So it's more than 2.
4 wines in. But either way,
who's counting?
My point is have we seen a Amazon Expanse? I don't think we have we?
I think seasons 4 and 5 were both Amazon productions.
Were they really? Okay.
Yeah. Because I think it was canceled after season 3 by Sci-Fi, picked up by Amazon, and then they just kind of took over the production. No, I mean visually, I think it's been consistent through its seasons.
Has.
So here you're starting from ground zero of building this show, whereas that one, the blueprint was already there. You just had to follow it.
But we have Amazon money in Expanse already. That was my...
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. Yep. So,
all right.
Mass Effect TV show. We'll watch its career with great interest as it develops. So why don't we go ahead and talk about The Expanse, since we've been talking about it so goddamn much. We got an official trailer for the 6th and unfortunately final season of The Expanse over at Amazon. And I watched it for some reason, even though I'm still seasons behind. I actually didn't think I didn't learn too much that I didn't already know, which I guess is good. I really could have fucked myself by watching it, but it looks excellent. It looks like The Expanse, which is, I guess, effectively just synonymous with excellent. I really need to watch this fucking show. Is what I have to say about it. So, you are up to date. You watched through season 5?
Yes.
Which would have came out, I think, probably late last year. Probably around this time frame last year, I would guess.
Yeah, I'm all caught up. It's good stuff. Highly recommend it. And this looks like it's
more of the same, but that's not a bad thing, right?
No, it's not a bad thing. No, more of the same. The characters look very compelling. I'm interested to see where they ended off. I don't know a whole lot about the written content of the like the source material. I think you know more than me, but I don't know how far you are in the series and stuff. But
they're past me now. As far as I read in the books, the show has now passed me. There's 9 books. The 9th book, actually, by the time this episode is up, will have just come out within the past week, couple weeks, whatever. So the book series is effectively now done. Obviously, the TV show will be done by early next year. So the series
is done. The book series is done.
The book series is now done. The TV show is only adapting the first 6 books in the series. They just made the creative decision, I think, to do it. My understanding is there's something that makes the last 3 books feel a little bit more detached, so that there is some sort of natural stopping point in books, or I guess at the end of book 6 that allows them to say, okay, we don't want to do seasons 7, 8, 9. For this reason or that. So I my hope is that because they're making that decision, that it has a satisfactory, self-contained type of ending. And then for the people that, want more, need more, there's 9 books waiting for them. They're not one-to-one adaptations, even from the books that I read to the seasons that I watched. But they're pretty close. And the writers of the book series have been heavily involved in the show from day one. So basically any changes they've kind of made themselves, being like, yeah, this actually does work a little bit better. Or if we introduce this character or merge these characters or get rid of this character, we're doing this because it works better for this medium than it did when we wrote this book, however many years ago. So season 6 is coming to Amazon Prime on December 10th, I believe is the date on that. I think Amazon's trend is to do 3 up front and then do weekly drops from then. I assume that's going to be true for this one as well. So there's a little bit of, you'll have to wait a little while to be able to watch the entire season. But it's coming very soon. It's starting very soon, at least. So I will definitely not be caught up anytime soon. But I need to convince Anna that this is one that we should move up the queue so we can watch it. That's the problem. Is,
for sure.
It's hard to find time to watch it on your own time because I've got this and that to do. I've got that. I gotta finish Mass Effect, for fuck's sake. I can't be watching The Expanse and finishing Mass Effect. Where am I gonna find the time for both? So if we watch it together, then it's fine because
makes it
easier. Then I don't have to carve out time. So yeah. Any other thoughts on The Expanse?
No, that's it.
All right, so let's move on. A few more pieces of news, and they're all Marvel-centric because that's mostly what we talk about on this podcast because that's what makes money in this world. And honestly, I tend to enjoy most of it, so I'm really not that upset about it.
No.
Delroy Lindo is joining Mahershala Ali in the upcoming Marvel Studios film Blade. So Delroy Lindo is awesome. He's great. I think we probably... Oh, so he's apparently in The Harder They Fall, which is on Netflix, and I really want to watch that. It's like the Western one, which looked really fucking cool. But we also saw him on Netflix in Da 5 Bloods, which we covered, good ways back, where he played a very memorable Trump supporter in that film. And he's going to be playing... well, actually, we don't know who he's going to be playing, but we know that he's going to be alongside Mahershala Ali, who we might have heard recently in a certain recent Marvel film. I realized that that's just kind of spoiling things outright, but hey, Blade is very much part of the MCU, and that's very cool. So, like I said, there's no word on who he's going to be playing, but there is a lot of speculation that he's going to be playing basically a character who is Blade's mentor. You may recall a character named Whistler from the Blade movies with Wesley Snipes. Does that ring any bells for you? Christopherson?
But I can definitely look it up.
You look him up. You know what Chris Christopherson looks like as soon as you find him on Google Images. The character of Whistler was apparently, I guess, invented by David Goyer for that film as he was writing the screenplay. He's an adaptation of a character named Jamal Afari. Basically what happened... I know exactly what you're talking about. There you go. So apparently what happened is Blade was black, but he couldn't have a black mentor for some reason, so we had to make this black comic book character into a white guy to show him the ropes, because that's how we do things, in the late 90s. But basically, it's this character who's a mentor. So the speculation is that he's going to be playing this character Jamal Afari, but we don't know that officially, and that would effectively we would then assume that the character of Whistler would not be making it to the Marvel Studios, the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Blade. So anyway, Delroy Lindo, Blade, Jamal Afari, Whistler. You have any thoughts?
Sounds cool.
All right, Andrew has spoken. Podcast has spoken. All right. Well, let's now turn our attention to some more Marvel stuff. A lot of Marvel stuff. Disney Plus Day happened since we recorded last. In which case, this is where, the bigwigs come out and say this show is happening and this show is happening and then this show is happening, and then they do that for an entire day. And at some point, Marvel Studios, takes their turn at the table and says, "Oh yeah, well we've got 12 shows coming out to Marvel, to Disney Plus in the near future." So here we are. We're going to talk about the 12 shows that
holy shit,
that are coming from Marvel Studios. And so some of these obviously we can breeze through pretty quickly, but some of these we got some first looks at. Some of it we just got logos. Some of it we got literally a picture of Samuel L. Jackson. So, so what do we have? What do we have to talk about from Marvel Studios' appearance at Disney Plus Day? So there are quite a few projects. Let's talk about the animated projects, actually, first of all. Why don't we do it in this order? So they announced X-Men 97 is happening, a continuation of the X-Men 90s show.
Okay.
Apparently bringing out... it's apparently going to be bringing back most of the voice cast from the original. I think the actual 90s show is actually currently on Disney Plus, and presumably it'll keep the same animated style and everything, and same theme song, the same badass theme song. But that sounds cool as fuck to me. That's a great show.
Yeah, it was awesome. Watched a lot of that show.
Some of it's got some 90s-isms, like Wolverine calling people, "You egg-sucking piece of gutter trash," that sort of thing. But yeah, it's got that going for it. So I'm excited about that. What If Season 2 was announced. I think we knew Season 2 was coming, but they made it officially official. Even though I think they'd already made it officially official, they just reiterated that it was officially official. I Am Groot. That had been another thing that had been previously announced. We got a logo for that. An animated series about, you guessed it, Groot. Groot. Groot is the character that will be featuring in it, and he will probably say, "I am Groot" a lot in it. And then I think the two exciting, big exciting animated projects. Marvel Zombies. They're doing an animated series of Marvel Zombies, kind of obviously following on the heels of that one episode that we got in What If. It's going to be about a new generations of heroes battling against an ever-spreading zombie scourge. I assume that it's probably going to be the same universe as that, but maybe they do a clean slate and just do or maybe they even start like, day zero of a zombie apocalypse or something like that. But I think, for my money, the most exciting animated show that they're going to be working on is a Spider-Man TV show called Spider-Man Freshman Year, which will take place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It will center around Tom Holland's version of Peter Parker, and it's actually going to serve as a prequel to his first appearance in Civil War. It's going to be talking about the character's early roots, basically, his freshman year of high school. I think he might have been a sophomore in Civil War or something like that. So you get a little bit of the backstory for this version of Peter Parker, which is I think a great way to explore that. Obviously, Tom Holland, as youthful as he is not getting any younger. He's too busy starring in Uncharted and such. But
with Sully.
with Mark Wahlberg just playing himself, but yeah. So those, you have any thoughts on the animated shows that I just mentioned? All the ones I mentioned, all 4 or 5, whatever it was. All animated.
I would say I am more excited about the X-Men.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, the biggest thing that, like, I don't know. Yeah, that's fucking good.
It's good
and
stuff.
Ray Charles, get out of my head.
Yeah.
Get out of my head, Charles.
Bitch, don't you know the fuck I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. You cannot harm me.
Let's pull it way back. But that's the X-Men series, dude.
That's where it came from.
That's where it came from. It's some good shit.
Yeah,
First,
that's totally fair.
Experience to like Phoenix and everything else came from that 97.
It's a pretty good adaptation of the X-Men comics. Like, it's a little corny and dated in some ways, but it's a pretty faithful adaptation that gets the characters pretty right.
Yeah, I mean that's the like I said, that's the
shit we grew up
exposure
on too,
that I had to the content that we have now. I didn't have a lot of exposure to the actual comics, and so I got it from other ways, and X-Men's the way I got it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it makes me hyped, dude. I'm real excited about it.
I'm excited about it as well. So what else did we get? So let's talk about. Like I said, we got a picture of Samuel L. Jackson looking a little gray and grizzled for Secret Invasion, which he's coming back for as Nick Fury. Got a logo treatment for that. We know that he's up in space, doing some space business. Ben Mendelsohn's back as Talos from Captain Marvel. He's a Skrull. And Secret Invasion, it's pretty much about Skrulls probably infiltrating the planet, so that's cool. We didn't really get a whole lot of information on it, other than Fury obviously going through some shit, so that's that. We got logo treatments for Ironheart, which is a pretty recent Marvel Comics character, Riri Williams, being portrayed by Dominique Thorne. She's an inventor who basically makes her own Iron Man suit, and presumably this is setting up her as a Tony Stark type successor, which is cool. Very, very good stuff. And then I think kind of the other two interesting ones. One we already talked about, but it's now been officially announced. Catherine Hahn is back as Agatha Harkness in a series that is going to be called Agatha House of Harkness, and live action series. Coming from the same head writer as WandaVision, where Agatha was initially introduced. Cool. I know we talked about it, so not a whole lot to rehash there. The other one, which had been, I think, unofficially announced, but now officially confirmed, is a series called Echo, which will star Alaqua Cox as Maya Lopez. This character has barely made an appearance in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you happen to have watched the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye, have you? Well, I want to just put you on the hook right now. Have you watched any
Hawkeye yet?
Okay. So she makes her debut in episode 2. It's not really much of a spoiler to say, and it's a very brief debut. But basically, she's a character that's getting introduced in Hawkeye. She's going to be getting her own show. She's a deaf Native American character who is traditionally an assassin in the comic books. She has a lot of roots in Daredevil. That's kind of where her character was introduced. So that's interesting. How does Marvel Studios deal with that? I don't know. We don't have any information on that.
So you gave me a little bit of a spoiler. This isn't the girl that's supposed to be Hawkeye's protege, right?
Correct. No, she's I think an antagonist in the Hawkeye show. I don't think that's a spoiler to say. Kate Bishop is Haley Steinfeld's character, who's kind of, teams up with Clint Barton, with Jeremy Renner's Clint Barton. So
okay.
So yeah, you should get on Hawkeye though. First 2 episodes are up.
I was gonna watch it, and to be completely honest, Sarah was sleeping, and I didn't want to wake her up because I wanted to turn the shit up.
There's a lot of Christmas music in it, so she might be into it. It's got a fun Christmassy vibe to it. So if you're ready for the holiday spirit, we are just about into December as of recording this. So Christmas is nearly upon us. So it's that time of year. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
That's what I'll tell her. This is the most wonderful show to watch.
It's fun. It's fun. I think she might enjoy it. For the Christmassy vibes, and I think just because it's pretty fun so far. So yeah, the Echo's coming along. I think what makes the most sense is whenever the Hawkeye show wraps up in a few weeks around Christmas time, maybe we'll revisit the idea of, okay, what's this Echo series going to look like? Because we really don't have a good idea who this character is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now. So we'll hold off on that. But we will not hold off to talk about the last 3 of the 12 series. Yeah, there's a lot that they talked about. We got 3 first looks at various upcoming shows. I think probably the most near to debuting shows on Disney Plus. So we got a first look at Miss Marvel.
Okay.
Kamala Khan, who is clearly a fan of Captain Marvel and inspired by Captain Marvel and has her own powers of sorts, which are apparently maybe going to be changed from the comic books to the show. And I should say these first looks are like, I don't know, 20, 25 seconds. Like they're
at best,
they're pretty scant on details. Very much just sizzle reel type things. So let's start with Miss Marvel. How'd you feel about the Miss Marvel first look? Anything in here that got you excited? I kind of feel like this one didn't really give a whole lot.
No, yeah, it didn't give me a whole lot. It kind of felt kind of Shazam-ish a little bit.
Yeah, that's a fair comparison. I get that, which is fine. I think it's going to be a fun show.
It's a good comparison. I like it.
It's
favorable. What I mean?
Yeah.
You got a younger person that's like discovering their powers and stuff and comparing themselves to like the larger universe, and there's a lot to draw on, and yeah, sounds cool.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. With what little we've seen, I know that there's a lot of potential for this character, this show to be really, really good, really fun. So I believe it's going to happen. I just, there's not enough here for me to really make that sort of judgment. What about She-Hulk? First look at She-Hulk. Tatiana Maslany playing Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk. We also saw Mark Ruffalo as full-on Professor Hulk. And this brief little tease that we got. How did this one fare for you?
We'll see how this one goes. I'm interested to see how the story arc flows through it, right? Mm-hmm. So like how does it interweave itself into the existing MCU? Yeah, that's about all I got. I mean, there's not a whole lot to draw.
I'm excited. I know this one is supposed to be more of a comedic supposed to have more of a comedic bent to it. And I really, really like Tatiana Maslany. I think she's really fantastic in Orphan Black. She's a lawyer, so that might be fun. Might be fun to watch some more, Marvel TV shows about lawyers. I greatly enjoyed Daredevil, obviously. So I'm excited to see it and see what they do with it. But we got like the briefest of glimpses of the She-Hulk design from behind. She's not wearing like the pink or the purple like string bikini like she sometimes wears, which is good. I think that's a good character design choice. But not enough for me to really, offer a whole lot of input on.
Yeah,
but last but not least, which I think this one has the most to it that really tells you the tone and feel of this. Moon Knight. Your boy Oscar Isaac is Mark Spector.
Don't even get me started.
AKA Moon Knight. So you can get started on Oscar Isaac. You can get started on Moon Knight. What do you think about this?
There was a funny little tidbit at the front of one of what's the show on HBO with the news? Yesterday's Today's.
Last week tonight.
John Oliver.
Yesterday's Today's.
John Oliver says a thing like he says, "Well, nothing gets turned on in the house unless it's got Oscar Isaac." I don't know, or something along those lines. Can't remember exactly what it was, but it was hilarious. That was the same one that I told you that you needed to watch because it had a lot of baseball references.
Okay, yeah, sure.
It had an Oscar Isaac reference as well. But this gives us the first glimpse at like a nitty gritty.
This feels like
MCU
grungy Netflix styled MCU stuff. You know what I mean? This feels more Daredevil and things of those vibes. Like this looks pretty dark for the MCU.
Absolutely. And I could not be more excited about it. I am not an expert on Egyptian mythology and that sort of thing. I know a little bit. I know enough to get me super interested in it, and I'm really excited about this. It sounds like a really awesome corner of the MCU to get into, or not even MCU, but it sounds like a very awesome corner of just mythology and general to get dive into. For sure. So, it's got Oscar Isaac. I couldn't be more excited. Oscar Isaac is losing his fucking mind, which is crazy.
He's losing his mind. He's also going to be going up against Ethan Hawke, who's playing the villain.
Ethan Hawke's the fucking villain?
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know who he's playing, but we know he's in it. I know he's the big bad, so.
And we don't get Ethan Hawke in anything. Ethan Hawke is a incredible actor. If you need any point of reference, watch Gattaca. That's all I got to say about that. I could not be. I didn't know that. So pumped.
Yeah.
Period. Pumped. That's all I got to say about that.
All right. Well, there's not a whole lot else to say. I think this is of anything we got a first look at. I think for sure it's the one that left me the most excited.
And you get the bit of him jumping over the buildings, over the street.
You get, you don't get a full costume reveal or anything like that. Same as kind of had it with She-Hulk, but you get enough of the tone and feel of the show to be like, oh fuck yeah, I'm in for this day one. Not that I wouldn't be anyway, because this is what we do. Is just
Oscar Isaac,
shows. But
Egyptian god.
Oscar Isaac, Egyptian god. Ethan Hawke. He's beating the shit out of someone. Like the Batman style, fuck yeah. I'm in. Say no more. So yeah, Moon Knight. These are all shows we can look forward to presumably next year. I think the three that we got the first looks at will be 2022 sometime. And I'm excited for all of them. I'm excited for this entire slate of Marvel Studios stuff coming to Disney Plus. Obviously, this is just the Disney Plus stuff. They didn't touch on anything coming to theaters, and God knows they've got plenty of things coming to theaters, including the next thing that we want to talk about, which is the official trailer for Spider-Man No Way Home, heading to theaters exclusively on December 17th. We got a lot of new footage showing off Tom Holland back as Spider-Man alongside Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, and alongside some familiar faces from previous Spider-Man films that we saw. No, I'm not talking about Tobey Maguire. No, I'm not talking about Andrew Garfield, but we sure got to look at some old villains. So yeah, the official trailer. What'd you think?
It looks absolutely amazing. Very excited about it.
It looks bonkers, and you know, I think I've probably expressed my hesitation with is it too soon for this type thing? Much as I am all in on Ghostbusters, which we will of course be talking about shortly, I'm now officially all in on Spider-Man No Way Home. And I'll tell you what, apparently the whole goddamn, at least United States is too, because tickets went on sale for this thing, and it is doing stupid amounts of pre-sales. It is apparently, within the first 24 hours of it being on sale, now it's the second most ever, behind Avengers Endgame.
Oh my goodness.
Ahead of any of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, ahead of Infinity War. I mean, just it this is absolutely going to revitalize the box office to very close to pre-pandemic conditions.
No way.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a good chance that this makes close to $200 million, which, obviously Avengers Endgame made $300+ million. You know what I mean? So it's still falling well short of that.
Yeah, but
I think
still
that
after a pandemic, that's
understanding,
during a
obviously,
pandemic.
Yeah, correct. The understanding, some general hesitation for people to go back to theaters, whether it's because they don't feel safe or whether it's because
they say,
I spent a shit ton of money on my
Spider-Man.
fucking home theater, man. But Spider-Man No Way Home is
Spider-Man.
It's getting asses in seats apparently, and I'm surprised in some ways. Not it's a Spider-Man movie. Of course, it's going to make gangbusters. Don't get me wrong, but I really thought that Sony would have to tease. I thought Sony would have to deliberately reveal that they're bringing back the old Spider-Man to make this do gangbusters. But I think just showing off the old villains has been enough. We get a look at, obviously we knew Doc Ock was back. We saw him in the other trailer. We saw Pumpkin Bomb. We hear fucking Willem Dafoe in this trailer, and we see the Green Goblin. And the Power Rangers outfit from the Raimi Spider-Man.
Oh, and it's fucking fantastic, right?
And look, and it's nostalgic and it's great and it's awesome. We also got Jamie Foxx, who
they're making you choose.
Just Willem Dafoe's. He's just so
William
good.
Dafoe's the fucking best, dude.
It's just so good. You cannot look. It's tough because obviously. I want them to do their own version of Norman Osborn and do their own version of Green Goblin, but how are you going to top Willem Dafoe? How are you going to do that?
You don't top him.
So right? he's just got such a presence about him. So I'm excited for him to come back. But yeah, Jamie Foxx is back. He's not blue, but he's got he has the fucking electro mask and lightning bolts across his face, and I'm honestly, that's pretty fucking cool. That's pretty smart. Sandman's in it. He's Sandmanning about. Lizard's back from Amazing Spider-Man. His design still looks bad, but obviously they kind of left it untouched. So it's a Sinister Five. Maybe there'll be a sixth that joins the fray. I'm not sure, but it looks fucking out there. I mean, it's got a lot going on. I think the runtime is going to come in at about 2.5 hours. So I think it's going to be a pretty extended affair for the MCU. So. I don't know. I'm stoked. I have tickets for opening day. I had to fight for them. I had to fight for them because all the ticketing sites crashed when the tickets went on sale. They crashed, and then when they came back up, AMC did a fucking queue system, and it's all right, your wait time is going to be more than an hour. So I was like, well, I gotta go to fucking bed. I gotta work in the morning. I don't have time for this shit. I can't stay up till 2 a.m. to do this. Once upon a time in my youth, I would do this, but I'm too old for this shit now. But I ended up lucking into. I think someone must have canceled their tickets for a Thursday showtime. So they're not perfect. They're off center, but they're 4 rows up. It's really not bad. It'll be in Dolby. So I'm excited for that. So there's going to be a lot to unpack with this movie when it comes out in just a few weeks' time from when we're recording. But I'm like I said, I'm all in on it. So do you have any other final thoughts on No Way Home?
No, looks incredible. Very excited. I am very excited. The fact that it appears to show Doc Strange exercising a lot of effort into doing whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, we have no... In the MCU, there's no... and I keep harping about it, but there's no sort of... Like... With the Doctor Strange movie, you get the perception that he's learning the craft, and then in
like Infinity War,
Infinity War you get okay, yeah, like he might be capable of something like a little bit more, but there's no sort of conception to what he's capable of. What If shows that he's capable of destroying an entire universe, right? Like there's no conception of what he's capable of, and this shows him showing exertion and trying to save and trying to exert himself, and so I'm very excited about that. So could not be pumped more. Super pumped.
All right, more pumps for Andrew.
Three wounds in.
3, 4, 5. Again, who's counting? All right, that brings us to the main event, Ghostbusters Afterlife. It is playing in theaters, exclusively written by Gil Kenan and Jason Reitman, directed by Jason Reitman, stars Carrie Coon, Fenn Wolfhard, McKenna Grace, my boy, Paul Rudd, the goddamn delightful Paul Rudd, alongside Logan Kim, Celeste O'Connor, and some names you might recognize: Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and Annie Potts. So when a single mom and her 2 kids arrive in a small town, they begin to discover their connection to the original Ghostbusters and the secret legacy their grandfather left behind. Why don't we do a box office breakdown? Does that sound good to you?
Box office breakdown.
It rang in at a $44 million opening weekend, which was good for number 1 on the weekend that it released in, and it currently sits $88 million domestically, tallying up to $116 million worldwide total through about a week and a half, 2 weekends worth. I think it looks like it dropped to number 2 for the second weekend, which was Thanksgiving weekend. I suppose I should say I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. That's one thing, because of the times that we recorded. It was like close to Halloween, and now we're just past Thanksgiving. We're all over the place here, but I hope everyone had a lovely Thanksgiving nonetheless. I hope you had a lovely Thanksgiving, Andrew. Or podcast, however you want to be referred to.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there was a couple new things that came out around Thanksgiving time that did ultimately dethrone Afterlife, but it made some good numbers, and I think it's had some pretty decent legs thus far. So maybe they're on track for a Ghostbusters 4/5. I don't know. We'll see. But that's the box office breakdown. A brief version of it, but we got some Ghostbusters to talk about. We got some busting to do. And so, well, I guess there's just one question. What did you think of Ghostbusters Afterlife?
So, I think it was well written. I think it was very funny. I laughed a lot in this movie. Cinematography was pretty good. It was pretty tight. And that was pretty much it.
Okay. I legitimately didn't know if you had frozen for a second.
No, I did not freeze. I was trying to think of
just
more,
parsing,
but I can't.
Parsing. Yeah, pretty good. I liked it. Yeah,
it's pretty good. It was entertaining. How long was this movie? 2 hours?
I think
roughly?
just north of 2 hours, like right around 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, like it didn't overstay its welcome. It was well paced. Paul Rudd was a delight. I definitely enjoyed.
He's just the most delightful man. I mean, come on, he's just the best. He really he's just the best, and he was
up until
he was having
Paul Rudd,
a fucking good ass time making this movie. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, up until Paul Rudd, I was like, okay, it's okay. And then Paul Rudd showed up and was like, okay, it's elevated. Instantly, it's elevated.
Definitely.
He had a lot of charisma in his character. And, yeah. It was a charismatic portrayal of the character of Paul Rudd's character. I can't remember his name.
You don't, remember Mr. Gruberson?
Gruberson,
Gary.
It.
You can just call him Gary.
Gary. I will say though that the nerdier character, I can't remember her name.
Phoebe
was great too. Mm-hmm. So, and she helped elevate Gruberson. Gary. Yeah, but that's pretty much all I got on that.
All right. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's I think I described it earlier as Ghostbusters: The Force Awakens, and I really do think that that's a pretty apt comparison to make with this, because it's, as I talked about, it's the passing of the torch in some ways. It's focusing on new characters, kind of letting them breathe in this universe that is still the same as it was, but things have changed, blah blah blah. So I think this film ultimately does a good job of not being too reliant on what came before. I think it's different from The Force Awakens, in that The Force Awakens I think was like a plot. I don't know. Force Awakens had a lot of the same plot beats. I guess, to be honest, this one obviously does have a lot of the same plot beats as the first Ghostbusters film as well. But I think it builds up to it in a different way, and it pulls it into a few different directions. Even when you think it might be going one way, it says, all right, well, you've seen that before. Let's do this instead with it and make it a little bit different for you, a little bit fresh. But I think what this film does most well is letting its characters kind of breathe and exist before the nostalgia and the old stuff kind of gets piled on top of that. You get kind of a big kind of bombastic prologue type thing where you don't really know what's going on, and then it really settles into itself, and it's about a family struggling, going, moving out to the middle of nowhere, and kind of finding themselves, and then, oh shit, there's also ghosts in this world, and we got to go about that. And Paul Rudd's an excellent summer school teacher. That's kind of where it goes, and I think it's a really interesting kind of plot direction as a let's bring this a few decades into the future and see where the world's at kind of thing. So I really, really liked the approach of taking it, focusing it on these characters who I think, I think Phoebe is great. I think McKenna Grace, who plays her, she's awesome. That character is very funny. Just got a perfect level of dry wit, for that character. Podcast, who we've talked about many times on this podcast already, it's kind of annoying, but is occasionally funny, occasionally endearing. Fenn Wolfhard plays a shitty, a shitty teenage boy, as Anna would say, teenage boys are the worst creatures on this planet, which hard to argue with that, I suppose. And then he has a love interest who kind of comes in and throughout, and she's fun, she's good. I don't know that her character had a whole lot to do, but I think that focusing on this family dynamic and kind of using kind of subtle bits of world building to kind of eventually open up the world to, oh shit, ghosts everywhere type thing. I really enjoyed kind of how they put all the pieces together, and then even then when it did lean into the more nostalgia-y type bits, I don't know, it didn't feel too fan servicey. It didn't feel like it was rehashing things, even if maybe it was hitting on some similar ideas and stuff. So all in all, I was pretty happy with it. I was pretty happy with Ghostbusters Afterlife. I think visually it was we talked about the cinematography. I think it looked nice. I mean, it's got such a different feel from the original Ghostbusters films, because those two are set in New York City. This one is definitively not set in New York City. It's in a small town, Oklahoma. So that gives it just a very, very different aesthetic. But I think they did a good job of keeping the sort of visual effects style of late 80s, early 90s films like the Ghostbusters 1 and 2, where, it's sometimes it's like a puppet that looks a little bit janky, or it's, a CG ghost who doesn't really look totally CG. You know what I mean? It's obviously still kind of done through practical means to some extent. And the sound design's good. You get the proton packs. The score is very reminiscent of the early Ghostbusters films. It hits all of the beats that I think you'd want out of a Ghostbusters sequel that you're getting a few decades after the fact. You're there because you loved the originals, and this one is clearly, I guess you could say, in love with the originals and paying a lot of homage and respect to them in kind of crafting its world. So I don't know. I'll just say I really dug Ghostbusters Afterlife. I think it's maybe a little slow at times. It's occasionally very funny. It's occasionally very, very funny, and Paul Rudd is a frequent source of humor. I think you should check it out. I suppose that goes to the recommendation, which I guess we can get into if you don't have any other thoughts on Ghostbusters Afterlife.
No, I think it was a well-written movie. I think it was pretty well paced. It's not the best paced movie I've ever seen, but I think overall it was pretty good. I think it did very well in paying homage to the original Ghostbuster stuff. Like, it very much felt like a Ghostbusters movie. It did feel like a passing of the torch of sorts, but it was good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So we can get into recommendations if you want.
Sure. So recommendations. What I'll first say is, look, go watch Ghostbusters 1 and 2. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that this movie is pretty reliant on Ghostbusters 1. It mostly ignores Ghostbusters 2. Although I think Ghostbusters 1 and 2 both have kind of value. Ghostbusters 1, you've got Gozer, you've got the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's just a very classic, funny 1980s, film. Ghostbusters 2 is kind of the sequel. It's just like, oh shit, what do we do now? But Ghostbusters 2's got some classic shit in it, man. Fucking Vigo the Carpathian. Shit gave me nightmares as a child. But it was totally worth it because it was just a cool movie. The fucking Statue of Liberty being, animated to fucking walk across New York City, like, just nothing like it. There's just nothing like it. But I wanted to say my piece on those because I meant to say that earlier. And if you had let me, I would have talked about them for a half hour each. But it's probably for the best. It's probably for the best that I didn't do that. So recommendations. Very yes, totally fine shithouse. Where does Ghostbusters Afterlife stack up for you in our grand rating scale?
Thought it was a totally fine movie.
Okay.
Had a lot of fun with it. Seemed well paced. It was well crafted enough. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I laughed a lot in this movie. The audience that I watched it with laughed a lot in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It was, and they laughed in like the fact that it was just well written. A lot of the comedic relief came from the what's her name?
Phoebe.
Yeah. Phoebe provided a lot of comedic relief along with Paul Rudd. And I think that she elevated Paul Rudd in a big way. And I think those two were great to experience in a movie together.
Mm.
Yeah. It was a totally fine movie. It's totally fine, our thing.
That's the middle one. So
yes.
So you're gonna
I'm
go
sorry.
there.
I'm not talking right.
You had a few wines. You had a few wines. We all understand. I'm going to go yes on Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's not perfect. It's not amazing. Yes, I suppose it does. Its existence relies on you having seen at least Ghostbusters 1, and so I think that's somewhat to its detriment, because there are times where it veers a little too close, does a little, it's the pacing sometimes doesn't super work. I think that some concepts kind of get thrown into there without a whole lot of build up, but I think on the whole it's very enjoyable. I think it's funny. I think it's entertaining. I think that's its strong suit, is that it keeps you engaged, I think, most of the time. And, whether it's just a sequence of, learning how to trap a ghost, or, it's the grand finale. Like, it's always entertaining. So I don't think it's necessarily the Ghostbusters 3 that apparently Dan Aykroyd and company envisioned at one point, as we talked about earlier in the episode. But I think that as a kind of Ghostbusters 3, works. I think it kind of it fits the part well. Like, I think the first Ghostbusters is still the best, because of course it is. It's hard to top that. But this is right up there with Ghostbusters 2. I don't think there's any reason. It's different. You don't have the main crew in this for the entire film. Obviously, you got a very different set of people who you're learning about, kind of throughout the film. So, and they're a lot younger, apparently Bill Murray was only like 20 or 30 something when he filmed the first Ghostbusters. I think Bill Murray is someone who just has perpetually looked like he's 50 years old, except for now he just looks like he's 70 years old now that he's got gray hair. But even the rest of the Ghostbusters, Ernie Hudson excluded, who I think looks fucking fantastic, and especially in this movie, he's definitely the Ghostbusters that's aged the best. But it's different. It's different for that very reason. You got kids versus adults talking about how this man has no dick. It's true, and it just, it's a different kind of style of humor that you get. And I think it works to kind of set the films apart in that particular regard. So I'm sticking with yes. I'm putting it on the record. It's a yes film for me. And I think we can talk about spoilers if you're ready for that.
Spoilers.
Full spoilers for Ghostbusters Afterlife. What's going on? What's happening
I
here?
have found the ability to speak.
Oh, no.
And I just So we had to cut the last recording a little short. I'm okay with, we split a bottle of wine for dinner, and then I took another bottle in here to record, and most times I can do it. Like, it's not that big of, by the end of the night, I'm feeling pretty toasty. Don't get me wrong. But,
usually not in the middle of the episode.
Toasty to the point where I had to excuse myself, and I'm done with this shit. I can't do it. It was, yes, it was not good. So apologies to all parties included. I don't know why the wine hit me like it did, and I don't know what it was, but it hit very fucking hard. Anyways, I found the ability to speak now. I can articulate.
He's got a few more things to say about Ghostbusters. I think is what he's trying to say right now.
So, in a nutshell, I think this was a very entertaining movie. I think the pacing seemed a little wonky to me, like it didn't constantly hit its stride. Mm-hmm. But overall, it was very charming. Paul Rudd, I think I said it before, Paul Rudd was an absolute delight in this movie. Thoroughly enjoyed his performance and his chemistry with the little girl.
Yeah, Phoebe.
With Phoebe. Yep. I think they were great. I also like Pod Racer, or Podcast. I also enjoyed Podcast. I thought the kids were outstanding. The younger kids, I really wasn't 100% on board with the
teenagers were more annoying teenagers.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. But other than that, it was pretty cool. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I laughed a lot. It was definitely a long day at work when I watched it, and it was a good release. It was definitely a lighthearted experience. So, that's what I've got in a nutshell.
Okay. All right.
Also, the soundtrack was banging. So
yeah, definitely. Those are definitely a few more words than you offered up however many minutes ago that is for the listeners. Now you gave a recommendation of totally fine. Are you going to stand with that? Are you good with that? Think it's kind of middle of our ratings tier?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's totally fine.
Okay.
I think I enjoyed it because I think I'm inclined to enjoy it a little bit more. I really like Paul Rudd, and I think it was written well. But the pacing was a pretty good detriment. I think it just didn't, like I said, it kind of lulled in certain spots, and it took a little while for it to get going. But I think it was a totally fine movie.
Okay.
What was your recommendation?
I went with yes. You may have been absent from the room, whether physically or mentally or both. But I said yes just to reiterate that, mostly for you. The listeners are like, yeah, I just fucking heard that. I already know. But yeah, I went with yes. So all right. So why don't we then now get into full spoilers? Is it as good a time for that now?
Yes.
All right. Full spoilers for realsies this time for Ghostbusters Afterlife. So, I'm sure I gave a nice long monologue, and non-spoilers, so I apologize if I kind of hit on some similar territory and getting to spoilers. Obviously, that's kind of the nature of splitting the conversation over a couple days, is you kind of forget what you said already. And also, Andrew probably, again, didn't hear me say it, so it's not the worst idea, but I think in terms of like spoilery stuff, it's pretty nostalgia heavy. It goes pretty hard on doing a lot of the same types of things as Ghostbusters 1. And I'll say that I liked some of it. Or I think I liked all of it. I just think some of it worked better than others. So I speak specifically, I guess, right now about the return of Gozer, the Gozerian, the Keymaster, the Gatekeeper, the dogs, all of that. Like, they kind of really, like, probably like 2/3. It's like really just kind of doing the same things as the first Ghostbusters, with like a slight like wrinkle or a slight twist added to like make it a little bit different, but it's kind of the same at the same time,
Yeah. I do remember Gozer from, was it Ghostbusters 2?
From the first one. And obviously for me, this is how now, I watched Ghostbusters 1 and 2 probably within 2 weeks of, before seeing this. I watched them in pretty quick succession. So it's all pretty fresh in my mind. I think that, that it makes you recognize, it helps you pick up on all the little things that they're referencing with this movie. But at the same time, it's kind of just like, okay, are they just are they just checking the boxes to kind of hit the same beats? Which is why I called it Ghostbusters: The Force Awakens, because The Force Awakens, although it was a great movie, it is a great movie. You can't deny that it's just hitting on a lot of the same plot beats that A New Hope did. You know what I mean? And some slight tweaks, and the Death Star's bigger this time, but like it's kind of the same in many respects.
Which I think is totally fair. I mean, it's a movie that came out, Ghostbusters hasn't had a successful like modern entry.
No, it hasn't
for the past 3 decades.
Yeah. Talked about the 2016 one, even though it wasn't connected, it wasn't successful on a critical front, wasn't successful on a box office front. Sure, like, shit wasn't successful for fans. Right. Yeah. It had some struggles, to say the least. So yeah, but so I think that it's fine. And I think it, in the same way that The Force Awakens gets away with it, I think that this one gets away with it too. I think The Force Awakens has better characters. You know what I mean? Like this one, as we talked about, like Phoebe's great, Paul Rudd's great, Gruberson, is that his name?
Yeah.
Gary Gruberson. He's awesome.
Gruberson.
Like he's great.
Hey kids, I've got Cujo.
Yeah, that was awesome. It fucking shows him Chucky in the next class.
Next day in class, yeah. It's great. It's awesome.
It was hilarious. Side note, and I'm just going off the rails here, the Walmart sequence was amazing.
It was.
Just pure chaos, but pure joy for me.
You see his strut? Like he knew he was going in as the keymaster. He was strutting in Walmart getting some ice cream. He was fucking strutting. It's hilarious.
Yeah, he had a brilliant. Paul Rudd was having the time of his life making this film, and it was abundantly clear. just watching him, just watching the man walk around, you can tell he's having a blast. Yeah, the mini Stay Puffs, like that's like a thing. It's a nostalgic thing. The Stay Puff marshmallow thing is back. But they did a little bit of a different riff on it. Different enough that, you've got these little minion-looking motherfuckers, running around just setting themselves on fire and turning themselves into s'mores, blending themselves. I mean, just ridiculous, and I loved every second of it. And that's the kind of thing that I'm just like, is this just going to feel like it's the same thing over and over and over again? And that one was different enough for me that it really didn't bother me.
What about like, the goober or the muncher?
Muncher, right? Who's like, I thought it was Slimer at first, and I'm like, what the fuck did he do with Slimer? Why does he look like that?
6 legs, and he's all fucking ugly looking. Of course, Slimer was a little ugly looking too. I guess
Slimer was no looker himself. This is true. Yeah, I mean, Muncher, as it turns out, was a pretty convenient plot device, so they could get through the little jail cell to get the proton packs and everything back. But hey, it worked out. It all came full circle. That was kind of fun. I liked, I liked how they weren't like the kids were like terrible Ghostbusters. You know what I mean? Like they were just really bad at it, blowing up the city, and they're trying to just capture this one ghost who just eats a bunch of metal and fucking shoots it back like bullets at them. But they're just
the ghost trap.
They're just bad at it.
Right?
Yeah, you can't get the fucking ghost trap out. Fucking amateur hour with these guys. But I was like, I'm glad that they're not just magically good at this because they're just children. You know what I mean? Like,
sure,
it makes sense that they would not be too technically proficient at this sort of thing. You got to leave that to the professionals. Call the Ghostbusters. Who are you going to call?
Yeah, the best one, the best reference for sure was when they got their phone call. I love that part.
It was great. So, I mean, we can talk about the inclusion of the original Ghostbusters. I put them in the cast list. I don't think it's a surprise that they brought them back. But they are in it pretty minimally, I think, overall.
Yeah.
Which I think is good. It lets the film kind of breathe on its own. I think that's that phone call scene where Phoebe talks to Ray while he's in his shop, I think is really, really great. Because I mean, like the whole film is obviously very much centered around this family's connection to Egon, and Egon having now died, I guess, as we kind of see in the beginning of the movie. Obviously, I think kind of a necessity type thing of Harold Ramis passed away many years ago, so we kind of have to craft a movie in which Spengler is not really part of the team for a particular reason. So, and it's fitting for him, like the apocalypse is coming and no one's going to believe me, but I'm going to separate myself from my family and basically rig this whole town to protect the world from descending into chaos. Like, it kind of makes sense for that character, but I liked how the plot was revolving around that so much because it feels like it just builds to this kind of natural way to bring in the original Ghostbusters.
Right.
But that said, I felt like the actual moment when the OG Ghostbusters came in felt a little out of nowhere for me. Like, I don't know, I was like, it's a good moment. Like, that you wanted that big hurrah moment of someone you wanted them sweeping in. But to me, it didn't feel too natural when they actually came in. Like, they just kind of show up in their full suits with the proton packs, which even though the already been stolen
and everything were like in the basement,
right? Like
whatever.
Right? Like, how many of these things do they have, and why are they so pissed about Egon stealing all their shit if they just have more of it? So I did find that a little kind of like, did we miss a scene or something like that? Did they cut that because they wanted to kind of maintain the grandeur of them, having this entrance? But once they're in it, you know what I mean? Like, it's like fun just having them back. Bill Murray's just, going to town, yelling at Gozer. Gozer being Olivia Wilde, which threw me for a fucking loop. Because great, this movie is being made 30 years after the original. Like, it makes sense you're going to recast that role if you're doing another thing of Gozer. But Olivia Wilde, I was just not expecting to see her. And I was not fucking expecting to see J.K. Simmons for about 3 seconds. I don't know if you even picked up on that.
No, where was he at?
He was Shandor. He was the guy with the white hair and the facial hair that was in the coffin.
Was that him?
Yeah, and it's just like, why is this man in this for 3 seconds?
Wow,
very very bizarre. I mean, I liked it. It's fun, but I like those two things were like big name kind of cameos, and it kind of almost pulled me out of it a little bit because like Gozer is just Gozer, and I don't need to be thinking about Olivia Wilde when I'm thinking about Gozer. Are you a god? And the voice of Gozer is this will connect it to earlier in this episode. It's Shore Agdashlu, who is Avasarala and the Expanse.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't pick up on like the voice sounding like her until I saw her name in the credits, and I was just like, oh yeah, that does make sense. She's got like a good raspy, deep kind of voice for like, it's actually like really good for Gozer the Gozerian. So what did you think about the original Ghostbusters coming in?
I thought the same thing. Like, I mean, it felt, I don't know, felt like Han Solo swooping in the Millennium Falcon. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You just got to pick a time for the drop in, and
and it was totally fine. There were a couple spots, like the proton packs and the uniforms and everything else that they just magically had. The second one was the and this is a real minor thing, but they're heading to the mountain. I think it was when they were chasing Muncher, and they've got the lights on. Maybe it wasn't when they were chasing Muncher. Either way, I can't exactly remember. But the car's going to the mountain, and the sirens are going, and then they take another like B-roll shot of it, and the lights aren't going. And then they take another shot of it, and the lights are going. It's like, what the fuck are they doing with the lights? Why aren't the lights running all the time?
One of the kids is just fucking flipping the switch on it.
Right, exactly. I don't understand. But yeah, like, it felt cool to have the original OG people just show up in like a big moment, and they don't seem at all fazed by what the hell's going on. They're just making light of the whole thing, which was kind of, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's kind of capturing the tone and the spirit of the original Ghostbusters, where it's they ain't afraid of no ghosts. I mean, that's what they're all about, obviously. So and particularly here, they're just like, yeah, we've literally done this before. We did this 30 years ago. We could fucking do it now. Yeah, we're a little older, and some of us are noticeably older. Again, except for Ernie Hudson, Winston looking excellent. He's looking excellent in his older days. But yeah.
I tell you what I wasn't a fan of was,
all right. Yeah.
Did Egon, did that, I don't know about the CG they used on Egon's face. It just didn't look right.
I actually thought it was pretty good. Yeah. I mean, like, it's like we've had instances obviously of taking dead actors and reanimating them, I guess, for lack of a better word,
or de-aging. It's been around for a little bit.
Yeah, de-aging I think is a little bit easier because usually there's some reference material, but like, yeah, this is what Michael Douglas looked like when he was, in Wall Street, so we can de-age him as Hank Pym and make him look a little younger. Like, sometimes it works better than sometimes it doesn't work as well. But I think, the whole, like we've seen, I guess, technically two different versions of Carrie Fisher. We have the young Leia, which they did at the end of Rogue One, which I don't think looked very good. And then you had, obviously, Force Ghost Leia and The Rise of Skywalker, which I think looked better. You had Tarkin as well in Rogue One, reviving Peter Cushing's imagery. I think there's
this one they had to take because Harold Ramis.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Harold Ramis looked completely different in his, before he passed than what they tried to portray him as looking in this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think they tried to make him look as close as he did when he was, before he died, like around the time that he died. Like, I think he's older, obviously, than we had last seen him as Egon in any of the Ghostbusters movies. So I don't know. I mean, I think, the fact, obviously they hide it a lot in the prologue sequence, keep them in shadows, which is, I think, the correct approach. I think the reason, I think it looked pretty okay in terms of, I think, just making it look like an older Harold Ramis. I think that, like, they kind of captured his look pretty well. I think it just helps that he's a ghost pretty much the whole time.
Also,
you know what I mean?
I think the biggest problem I had with Ghost Egon was all the fucking ghosts got swooped up in the fucking ghost traps. Why was he not swooped up in the ghost trap?
He's just hanging out. He's a good ghost, so it's fine.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
I don't know, but he specifically rigged it so that in case he died and came back as a ghost, that he could stay for a little bit longer, but then he'll turn into dust.
Stars. Yeah.
Stardust and stuff. So, that's like we want to have this nice moment of the original 4 Ghostbusters is kind of how that goes without really worrying too much about logic.
You could have had that nice moment before
they all get trapped.
Yeah, or before Gozer comes to you could have placed that anywhere. You know what I mean? In the movie, you could put it at the end, and then now Gozer comes to the house or whatever. You know what I mean? You could have had that moment absolutely anywhere. But having it after all the ghosts got trapped, and maybe all the traps were full.
That's what it was. They ran out of traps. There was just one convenient one. It's just like all the traps are full, so there's nowhere for you to go except for just choosing to dissolve at this particular moment.
Also, all the ghosts make noises and shit, but he can't talk.
I think that's a good creative decision though, because I think that's where that's where things get tricky is when you're trying to make people talk. Because obviously you have to pull. You either get someone who sounds like him, or you find archive footage or footage from other things and repurpose
splice it together.
And it's just like just have them give some knowing looks and glances and smirk a little bit, and I think it's as I think was the case with something like Tarkin. It's just like Tarkin looked great when it was a reflection on the bridge of the Death Star or whatever.
Right.
It's then when they full frame shot him for like extended periods of time. You're allowed to look at it for too long. You're just like, this is a bit fucked.
Right.
Same thing with honestly a more recent comparison, I guess. Not obviously a dead actor, fortunately, but de-aged Luke in The Mandalorian didn't look great. And when it was hitting with the hood up, being a badass, just swinging a lightsaber around, it was fine. Even for a split second, of the face, maybe it's fine. But then he's just there talking.
Is it because we know the actor, or
I think it's Uncanny Valley. I think is what it is. I think that something's not right. That that's not actually a thing happening. And I think you can kind of get over it if it's like a fully CG character. But something about trying to capture human faces, the eye movements, the mouth movements, just like the subtle movements of skin and everything like that. It's just hard to replicate it
yeah.
super, super convincingly. You can do it well. You can do it, technically very proficiently, but still something always seems just a hair off for whatever reason. I think that's generally why the de-aging works better, is because it is true performance capture. It's just, you're trying to smooth over their face so they look a little less wrinkly and all that jazz. Whereas here I don't even know how they did it. I think they had stand-ins in the beginning, when it's basically in shadows, but I have to assume that the CG ghost version is mostly CGI. I mean, the face itself I think is got to be purely CG, I would think. So I don't know. I didn't mind it. I think it was nice for them to do kind of the nice tribute to Harold Ramis.
It was a beautiful send off. Got a little tear in my eye when. I mean, don't get me wrong. All gripes aside, all plot holes aside, if it's a plot hole.
Correct. Okay? It's like a convenient plot hole to create a heartwarming moment. People are just this doesn't make sense, but just fuck off for a second. It was because kind of felt like their treatment of it.
Right. So. Yeah, we covered Walmart, we covered Ramis, we covered CG.
I think also in terms of the other CG, it had a nice blend of obviously things are CG now, but it still kind of had a wonkiness to it, like the dogs moving around in Walmart. They looked much better than they did in the original Ghostbusters, but they're still like a puppeteer,
they still look practical,
animatronic kind of quality to them. Although I'm sure that they're at least partially animated with CG. Same thing with Muncher and the other ghosts, but it still it didn't feel like they just, think about you remember they did that, the Thing sequel, with Mary Elizabeth Winstead, And actually, they shot the whole thing with like animatronics and blah blah blah. And then some dumbass behind the scenes made the executive decision to just erase all of that and put CG characters or CG CG monsters on top of everything, and it looks like super fake, super bad, and it looked significantly worse than the original did. And it's just like
it's like when they CG'd Yoda.
Yes, it's exactly, and well, sort of. I mean, they actually did that one's a little bit different because they did that puppet Yoda in that first episode one, but they didn't know how to make the puppet again, so he just looked all fucked up and cracked out. We
know
for some
fucking
reason.
Yoda's in a closet somewhere. Why don't we just go? Why don't we just
pull
get the
him
Yoda?
Out. Like they did that in The Last Jedi. Like the Yoda puppet or the mold was sitting around somewhere, you know. But no, like we have to de-age Yoda 30 years for the prequels, so now he just looks completely fucked. Yeah, but it is true though. The CG Yoda, even if it's not like the worst CG, it still looks worse because it's just a fucking CG character, you know, and it's an obvious CG character versus a true to life animatronic. Like you could literally see the difference because one's real and one's not. You know what I mean?
And there's always something to be said about practical effects. It's just you can't. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like it's infinitely more expensive to make things CG. Like, it's so expensive to make things CG, right?
I think in some instances that's true. I think it depends on what it is, you know? Just because it's so ubiquitous these days, like the technology.
If Mad Max was all CG versus what they did, would Mad Max cost more money?
I think the idea is that it saves you because you don't have to rig anything. You know, you can just shoot on a lot of green screens and blah blah blah, and all you're really doing is just rendering everything. And like obviously, it still costs a lot of money any way you spin it. But I do think that in some instances, CG is kind of a money saving tool. Like think about like even the amount of like CG blood that we get. It's like, why is everything CG blood? Surely this doesn't make any more sense than just having practical blood, you know, spraying around on set. It's just like, yeah, it's a little easier to clean because obviously it's fake. But
I guess you're right. Yeah,
right. But there's just like things where it's just like, yeah, it's just easier to CG this, and it's kind of, I mean, easier obviously is different from, you know, the cost. But I do think that it's part. I think it's part of the calculus. Is well, it's less work for us right now. And it might be a little cheaper in the long run because we don't have to, you know, keep doing this practically. But
I think that you get better performances when it's practical.
For sure. Because you have something, you know, you're
tactile. It's there.
Actors are good, you know, they're good at their jobs, and like, you know, anyone that's acting with tennis balls or whatever, you know, or whatever ridiculous mocaps, even the mocap suits just look just fucking ridiculous. Like it's hard to take that shit seriously.
I just think of Guardians of the Galaxy with the raccoon.
Yeah, you got Sean Gunn walking around like on his knees for, you know, in a green suit with, you know, and
it's how do you not sit there and laugh at that guy?
Right, and the Hulk is like a motion capture thing, and then there's like a foam Hulk that sits on top of their shoulders just so that the eye level is like established, so they know where to actually look.
It's ridiculous.
Just ridiculous shit.
Just cast Louis.
yeah, he's still around.
No, I mean it has its place and everything. I mean you can't. Obviously, it's got its place, but
yeah, it depends on what you're doing. But I think this one, because you're taking this established 1980s classic franchise in which it was very heavily reliant on practical effects because that's just how things were done in that era. I think that it would have felt disingenuous to just make everything like obvious CGI. Like, yeah, like it's CGI.
Dogs. The dogs could have easily been CG.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I'm sure they were in some shots where they're animated.
Walmart it wasn't. Well, some of Walmart was, but
like the close-up shots, they're clearly practical.
Yeah,
you know, things on set. So yeah,
that's cool. And it felt it felt like a throwback to that era of filmmaking, which was cool.
Yeah. No, and I like that aspect of it. So, is there any other territory to cover? I don't think I've said anything about Carrie Coon. I thought she was good. She played the mom. I thought she and Paul Rudd were fun together. You know, I liked how I think the kids were just like, the fuck's going on with these two? You know, that was pretty funny.
What was his last name? Grubermeister?
Gruberson.
Gruberson. He's like, I think Mr. Gruberson's trying to bone your mom. Oh, the best one was when he goes to the jail to pick up the kids.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, that was so funny.
I liked his post dog look when he he comes out of the dog. It's like his shit's all torn up. His hair is fucking wild. He's got
tulip. He's got tulip in the hair.
Yeah,
like a little flower. He's like He's just basking in the sun on the rocks. It's great.
Yeah,
Paul Rudd was excellent in this movie. Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd's always excellent.
He's always excellent. I think he's MVP here because he's just. If you're laughing at the way that this man is walking, like it's the perfect performance for something like this. You know what I mean? Like he's just going for it, but like in like a genuine, affable, really super likable Paul Ruddy sort of way. Because that's just what he does. That's just who he is. And he's also the sexiest man alive, as we talked about. I don't know, was that last episode even? I don't remember. But
how do you not talk about it now? So applicable.
Yeah.
He is the keymaster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
all right. Did you stick around for any mid or post credit scenes?
No, my phone started ringing. Somebody was calling me, and so I walked out just as the badass music kicked off. I was like, but I might have to pick up the phone.
They say I was wondering when they were bringing in the Ghostbusters theme. I'm like, if there's no Ghostbusters theme in this, then I may have enjoyed the previous 2 hours, but this film means nothing to me anymore.
So what happens?
Of course, they ended with it. So the mid credits brings back Sigourney Weaver as Dana Barrett, who is Venkman's love interest. I'm not sure exactly what their deal is, but they seem to be together. And it's, you remember the scene in the first Ghostbusters where Venkman's with the college students, and he's got like the shock thing, and they're trying to predict the cards, what's on the other side of the cards. So it's kind of a riff on that, where she's doing it to him, and it's pretty funny because he keeps getting it right, and he's talking about how he was kind of a shithead, when he was a professor back in the day, and then she's like, "How are you doing this? Did you mark the cards?" And he's just like, "Yeah, I did." So it's just kind of like a humorous little coda to the film that brings in Sigourney Weaver, which was appreciated because she's a pretty integral part of both these Ghostbusters films. So,
and it was important to show that Venkman's an asshole.
A cameo appearance by the one and only Anna Mattis.
No, and little Obi. Oh, look, his little tongue's going.
And Obi. What did you think about Ghostbusters? Oh, he licked the microphone. I think that's a seal of approval.
I like it. I like this microphone. I like it.
Oh, it's got slobber all over it now. Sorry. Yucky, big yucky Obi. Anyway, that was the mid credits, and then the post credits was very Winston focused because it talked about he's like a successful businessman. So we see him like walking around the fire station where like the Ghostbusters headquarters was in the original too, like kind of looking around, and then there's like a light on a containment unit that starts to blink because there's a ghost in it, and the ghost is about to do something, so they got to go ghost busting. So it feels like a if we do want more, maybe the original Ghostbusters are more intertwined with like the new characters that we got in this one type thing. So I don't know. It's one of those. I think this movie's doing like well enough for what it is. I think they could absolutely make a sequel. I don't think they need to make a sequel, but there's enough there. There's clearly enough interest with some of the original Ghostbusters to get them around and maybe have them more heavily involved in a sequel. So yeah, I think it's just teeing up the possibility without being too like, oh, we have to have a sequel now. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of what happened. So they're good. They're fun. Nothing groundbreaking or world breaking or anything like that. Just kind of setting the stage for.
I would enjoy
for maybe what's to come.
A fresh story Ghostbusters.
I think I agree.
Same cast.
You can bring in the original Ghostbusters, have them more involved, but give us a new story. Give us a non-Gozer, a non-Stay Puft Marshmallow Man type thing. Like do something different.
You have a world of I mean, you got all sorts of shit you can pull on.
Yeah, you can riff on real life stuff. You can make up shit. You can do whatever the hell you want. You can, again, turn Manhattan into a Manhattan hellscape or whatever, like they were going to do that, in that one original script they were making. Like, bring that idea back. Let's try it out. So, but yeah, I agree.
Fun.
I'm
fun
down
movie.
for more.
Yeah.
I had a good fun time with it. It's not perfect. Pacing, as you talked about, is not perfect. But it's fun. And, in these times, fun's enough. Fun's enough. You know
fun
what I mean?
Is enough. Let fun be enough, damn it. Let it be enough.
Uh-huh. So that's Ghostbusters Afterlife. So we teased something in the beginning of the episode, and that was Andrew paying Anna and myself a nice visit up here in Philadelphia.
I did.
So I'm sure you've been up to some other stuff since then, but why don't we start there? How did you enjoy your trip up here?
Pennsylvania is a wonderful state. Philadelphia is a wonderful city. For the first time all year, we get to experience the season of, I guess it was winter. But it was like the tail end of fall. I feel like there were tons of trees that still had foliage and they were losing their leaves. It was it was very pretty up there. It was nice to have to dress warm because it's cold. And we flew in. So our flight there was interesting because there were some younger folks vaping on the plane.
I forgot about this. Yeah,
and there was an older gentleman in front of us on the plane up, and he was not having it. Every time those girls would do something, and they were one row in front of him, but over to the right across the aisle. And anytime they did anything, he was punching his button like repeatedly, the call button for the flight attendants. Beep, 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 beep. He'd just sit there and just tap the shit out of it. Those girls over there they're vaping, and they're pulling down their mask and picking their nose. And they did it like 3 or 4 times to the point where he was begging the flight attendants to charge them aviation fees and penalizations and stuff. And so that was interesting. We get into Philly, and Colton picks us up, and we drive over to Exton. Is that right? Exton?
Exton, PA, yep.
Exton, PA, to go visit one Enrique Jaime, and his fiance is Lean. And they greeted us with shrimp pumpkin stew, which was absolutely incredible. I've never had such a thing. I've never had anything made inside of a pumpkin, let alone a stew. So that was excellent. And it was good to visit. And then we drove the following morning. We went over there to Philadelphia, or Philly. We went to Philly, and we got brunch. And we went to a little Christmas store, and Colton's walks Obi in the yard of freedom. He walks little Obi just right across the street from the Pennsylvania State Building, or the Liberty Hall, or whatever they call it. I think they call it both. We ended up taking an awesome tour inside that building. I actually brought a little tear to my eye. Like, it was just amazing to see the humble foundations of what we call America.
You gotta get swept up when you're able to see it like that.
Yeah, because you don't think about it. You never really ever think about it until you see it. And it's just it's a really, really, really cool experience. Probably more so if you get wrapped up in history and whatnot, but I just think that if you just spend a little time dwelling on it, and then you put yourself inside of the actual buildings that people walked around in when they drafted, the Declaration of Independence or whatever, it's a really cool, really fucking cool thing. Anyways, we went out for a night of shenanigans. We had some shenanigans.
Shenanigans were had.
And then the following morning, we flew home. Or not flew home the following morning. We had brunch and King.
Oh, yeah, King of Prussia.
King of Prussia and went to this awesome, like, what do they call it? Farm to table? I think that's what they call it.
Yeah.
Ridiculous brunch. With the whole crew, Enrique, Isleen, Colton, and Anna, and me and Sarah. And then we came back and rested because we were pretty hungover. It was pretty. We were feeling
it was an eventful Saturday evening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we, anyways, we
needed a little bit of rest.
A day of rest we had. We didn't do much on Sunday, to say the least. We had lofty ideas of going to the art museum and going to see a church and eating a Philly cheesesteak because we got robbed of that opportunity on Saturday
some
night.
Bullshit. Yeah. Fuck, man. That's I maintain, because let me just say, let's just say it's the most intoxicated I'd been in a while, in a long time.
And I think you owe it. I don't think you would have been.
I think the cheesesteak was exactly what my stomach needed at that point in time, and it didn't
you were
happen.
Denied it. That's
so
it.
Then I just drank more, and well, the rest is history. So,
and then we flew into Georgia, and then we had a nice relaxing trip. I restocked on my Blue Ridge olive oil.
Nice.
We get these infused olive oils from the olive oil store in Blue Ridge, and they're fabulous. They're very good. And we cooked, and we just had a merry time. We deep fried some turkey, and then we came back for Thanksgiving. Came back home to Florida, and celebrated Thanksgiving over at Sarah's family's house, and that was very nice. And then it was back to work on Monday. Excellent time. In that time, I did start a show called Cowboy Bebop. Have not finished Cowboy Bebop, but I will say I'm not driven to finish it. Like, it's just okay.
How far into it did you get? I know you watched at least a couple. Did you get past that at some point?
Yeah. So I think I watched another episode on the flight to Blue Ridge, and then the flight home. I watched another episode. So I think I'm like 4 or 5 episodes in. And I don't know. It's not very compelling. I'm not really. They do they have one overarching story, but then they'll like split up into like little adventures that they kind of pick up on. I guess maybe similar to The Witcher, but it's just not. I'm just not drawn into it a whole lot. I mean, it's real stylish, but that's about it. Kind of fell flat for me. I have started a novella by Brandon Sanderson called Edgedancer. I think I probably have... I don't have much longer. Let me look real quick.
You're almost done with it?
Yeah, it feels like it's winding down to an end. I've got 1 hour left in Edgedancer.
Okay.
So I will probably finish that maybe... probably tomorrow. I'll listen to it before I go to sleep tonight, and then probably finish on my way home or tomorrow night. So, got an hour left on that. It is good. Highly recommend it. I would say, I mean, obviously I don't know the overall arc of everything, but I would say it's probably essential reading or listening for if you're in the Stormlight Archive series. It does fill in some gaps with with at least one major character.
Okay.
Or what I think is a major character. So it's good. Really enjoy it. It follows the perspective of Lift, which is a little like you get a little sample of Lift in Words of Radiance.
Right.
Yeah, she's an interlude character, and to have a novella about her, you get a whole like 3 or 4 hour, I think it's 6 hours. It's a 6-hour novella if you listen to it, but very small, itty bitty little book. To have like that dedicated time to her is a lot of fun. It's a breath of fresh air because just the way she interacts with the world and the way she sees things and stuff. She's like supposed to be like 13 or whatever, so it's really cool. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Or am enjoying it.
We should also say this: you've officially passed me and reading
passed you?
Stormlight Archive. Yeah, because I haven't read Edgedancer. I haven't read any of it. I haven't listened to any of it. So now you're past me. I gotta catch up now.
I have. I just when I logged in to see how much time I had left, I have another credit, which means that I start Oathbringer probably before the end of the week. So I am excited. I'm very excited. Little disappointed because I'm rapidly approaching the end of my days with Stormlight Archive are numbered until he writes another book.
You've got 2 more books to plow through and another novella, so you've got some material, and they're not short books, mind you.
No,
so
no.
So you got a couple months at a bare minimum, I feel like, ahead of you before you really need to start figuring
really
out what
the
next one is. Just do Mistborn. Just
that's what I'll do.
Wheel of Time.
I have a reading guide, and apparently after Oathbringer, I'm supposed to hop into Mistborn, in order to follow characters and story arcs and that sort of thing. So I don't know if I'm going to follow the story arc or follow my reading guide. I feel like I just kind of like want to wrap one up and go into the next.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'll have to talk to Steven about it because he's the one that made the reading guide. But either way, I did get one book too from...
That's true. You did.
Enrique, called Ronin, a Visions novel. Follows the Ronin episode, the guy from the Ronin episode of Star Wars Visions. And maybe that's what I will hop on after Oathbringer. So, anyways, It did make it home in my backpack without obliterating the book, which is good because that was a concern. Everything that enters the backpack gets destroyed. But I think that's pretty much it. I can't think of anything else that I've really done. I watched Elf with my dad. My dad thought he went to bed. I didn't watch it with him, to be fair, because he went to bed 20 minutes after we started. He said this movie's horse shit and I'm done with this. So he stayed until the escalator. Once it got to the escalator, he said, I'm done. I'm going to bed. I watched after Elf. I watched Step Brothers with my sister. Never seen it before. It did make me laugh. It was pretty funny.
It's funny.
Yeah. It was absolutely ridiculously stupid, but it was totally fine. Mm-hmm. It's that kind of humor, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyways, I think that's the extent of what I've been up to. How about you?
So since it's been 2+ weeks since we recorded, I do have a few things to talk about. I'll try not to be here all night, as I'm wont to do. I think only a couple new movies in here. So first new movie that I saw is The French Dispatch of the Liberty.
Oh, you
Kansas
did not?
Evening
Is that even
Sun.
out?
Yeah, it's well, I don't even know if it's out in theaters anymore now, but it actually came out in late October, I think. Kind of like a limited type release. It was only playing in New Jersey, so we kind of had to go out of our way to see it.
Outstanding.
Yeah, it's really good. You know, I think you understand what I'm saying. It's a Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah,
it's just a Wes Anderson movie. He's a weird dude. He's got a very unique style, and I think it works.
You're either about it or you're not.
I think if you've seen a Wes Anderson movie, you'll understand what I'm saying, and you're either in the bag or you're not. You know, I think I didn't know a whole lot about it other than having obviously just seen the trailers that we have talked about, you know, probably. But it's divided up into different storylines. Like basically it's tracking like an issue of this newspaper. And so like you do like a 20-minute or 30-minute type thing that's about like an article centered around this thing that's happening. And it's all about this like fictional city in France is where it all kind of takes place. So, you know, I think all the storylines were like really fun, very different from each other. Cast is ridiculous, just a fucking ridiculous cast. Benicio del Toro, Adrian Brody, Tilda Swinton, Lea Seydoux, Frances McDormand, Timothy Chalamet, Jeffrey Wright, Edward Norton, Willem Dafoe, Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, like just completely stacked. But it's got great cinematography, great score from Alexandre Desplat, and you know, it's worth checking out because you like Wes Anderson stuff, I'm speaking to you specifically.
Yeah,
you'll like this movie. Like, it's got a great production design. It's yeah. I mean, it's just totally going to be your thing. So I assume this is something like that will be coming to either VOD or Blu-ray or whatever, probably like relatively soon, because it's not making a shit ton of money in cinemas or anything like that. So this one feels like one that will play pretty well whenever it gets kind of that home release treatment. So yeah, it's good. I really enjoyed it. I had a fun time with it. It's fairly breezy. It's under 2 hours, and kind of the structure of each story kind of being its own thing kind of keeps it on track pretty good. So I definitely recommend French Dispatch. The other new movie that I watched it on Netflix because that's where it is. It's called Tick Tick Boom. I know we watched
a cool trailer.
Yeah, we saw the trailer for this. It's Lin-Manuel Miranda's directorial debut. It's an adaptation of a stage show written by Jonathan Larson, who is the creator of Rent, which is my favorite musical of all time. And it's a really good way of adapting it because like originally that was like a one-man stage show and it kind of turned into something else a little bit more involved. So this one basically, has the stagey aspects of it, but it's intercut with actual filmed scenes, dialogue, and stuff like that, capturing what would be acted out on stage, but, taking what works on the stage and keeping some of that while also giving you something that's a little bit more cinematic in terms of like how it is. So it doesn't just feel like a filmed play.
Does it feel whiplashy in that regard? To where some of it feels staged and some of it feels...
No, because what feels staged is like intentionally feeling staged. You know what I mean? It's just like him like on a piano on a stage, like talking to the audience, which is just kind of, people in the movie. And then it, it's like, and then this happened, and then it like kind of goes back, and then it gives you kind of something, and it's like a musical sequence or something like that. So I think it's really, really well done. I think for a directorial debut, it's incredibly impressive. And obviously Lin-Manuel Miranda has been around the block. He fucking made Hamilton. Like he knows what he's doing. He knows
what works. Right.
He knows what he's doing. He made In the Heights. Like he knows how things work. But it's a really, really impressive debut. Andrew Garfield plays the lead, and he's awesome in it. He apparently had no singing experience prior to being cast in this movie, and you couldn't tell, which is good. Which is to say that he's really good. And it's a really interesting movie. It's a really good movie. The music is great.
Is it a love story?
Yes, in a way. It has an undercurrent of romance that I think kind of plays through it, but it's basically about he's a struggling writer who works at a diner to pay his bills, and he's trying to get his big break, and he's been working on this play for like 10 years, and he's trying to get it sold so it could be on Broadway. So it's about like his struggle to put it together. Like he's trying to write one final song for it, basically. And it features this was kind of an interesting coincidence. Bradley Whitford plays Stephen Sondheim, who was a real life musical genius responsible for like writing a million like Broadway plays. Like if you've seen a Broadway play, he probably either wrote it or had something to do with it. Is really kind of like the level of his talent. And he unfortunately died just a few days ago, when he died on the same day that we watched this. And so we didn't know that like the fictionalized version of him was going to have a big role in this, or I didn't anyway, that, was going to have this big role in this movie. So it kind of hit like a little bit harder because it's a really nice portrayal of him. But it's really good. As someone that again loves Rent, it's got the same kind of styling of music. It's clear that Jonathan Larson had a very particular style. And I think that it's really, really good. And unfortunately he died very young. The real life Jonathan Larson died really young, basically like I think the night before Rent was set to make its debut, something like that. So it's a really, really touching story. Kind of hits you in the feels, and the music honestly is enough to get you into it. So yeah, I highly recommend
that one a visit too.
Tick, Tick,
okay.
Boom. Yeah, and it's on Netflix, so stream it whenever. But it's a good one. in terms of other things that I watched, kind of running down, also staying with movies. This is the last movie I guess I'll talk about. I watched Moulin Rouge for the third year in a row.
Uka buka she moula shoswa.
Yep. Yep. That's the one. Yeah, it's Anna's favorite movie. And I know obviously I've probably now talked about it 2 years prior to this. It's a movie that I think becomes more rewatchable the more I watch it. Like, I enjoy it the more I watch it. And obviously part of that is the joy of just like sharing the experience with Anna, because she loves it and she gets sucked in, and she she's a puddle of tears by the end of it every time. But I think it's legitimately very enjoyable. It's a super, super chaotic movie for like the first 20-30 minutes. It settles in, and then it has this nice love story between Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman. And
I didn't even know they were in it.
Yeah, they're the two leads. Fun fact, and maybe this is again repeating something I said last year or the year prior. Who remembers that shit anyway? Her character is named Satine, and obviously Obi-Wan's great love in the Clone Wars is also named Satine, and that's because of this movie.
No shit.
Yep. So that's why they did that. But no, it's good. Baz Luhrmann, who's the director on this, he's another director with a very particular style, and his is bombastic and over the top, and very much not a Wes Anderson type of aesthetic, but unique and fun. And Moulin Rouge is like that in excess. It's fun. It's really fun. Yeah, I recommend it. It's a good love story with good performances, also good songs. It's the medley type thing, so it's a lot of like popular songs with kind of new renditions and kind of cut together and stuff like that. So it's fun. It's good. It's jukebox, I guess, is kind of what they call it. But yeah, it's good fun. TV shows. I finished Chuck. Boom, done with it. Watched all 5 seasons of Chuck. Finally, it's probably been a while since I've really talked about it, because we got like 4 or 5 episodes away from finishing it, and then kind of put it on the back burner for whatever reason. I think Anna wasn't quite ready to deal with it with the end, because it's a bit of a bittersweet ending, I think, as it turns out. But I thought it was super fitting for the show. Super fun, super charming show. Really, really just great comfort food. It's all streaming on Amazon, so it's pretty easy to consume if you want. It's just a fun show bolstered by super fun, charming cast. Zachary Levi as Chuck, Yvonne Strahovski as Sarah Walker, and then Adam Baldwin as John Casey. Just those 3 are great. Forget the actor's name, but he plays Morgan Grimes, who's Chuck's best friend. He's great too. Just a really, really fun cast. Fun premise of loser turns into super spy because he's got a computer in his brain, and now he's just suddenly the smartest man in the world and can do kung fu and shit like that. That's the kind of thing that it is. Like, that's the premise of it, basically, is he gets a supercomputer uploaded into his brain, so he knows government secrets and stuff like that. So he's basically like the biggest asset they could have. But and the show is basically him forming relationships with his handlers, kind of growing to be friendly, or maybe even more than friendly with them. Who's to say? And then himself turning into an actual spy, going from zero to hero, as you might put it. So I highly recommend Chuck. It's well worth your time. It doesn't really, lull at any point. Like, some of it's better than others, but it's always got good guest stars on it. It's always got fun plots and stuff that kind of keep it, like, each episode's really kind of its own thing. It's pretty kind of procedural in that regard, with the kind of the overarching plot throughout. But yeah, it's good. Highly recommend Chuck. Glad I watched it. Glad I finished it. Now it's on to other things and stuff like that. But I really enjoyed my time with it. So that's that. I'm not going to say anything more than just saying that I've watched the first couple episodes of Hawkeye. And I guess we talked about it a little bit earlier. Now that I think about what we were talking about 2 days ago, really is kind of how it is. I started it last night, and then Sarah said she had to go to bed. Okay.
So I am like, Theo was super into it too. I mean, he was up. Was it the Christmas music really getting him into it? Is that what it was? It was, it was it was funny, at the same time it was real sad.
Was it Lucky the Pizza Dog?
You could tell he was connecting to it because in the beginning, the little girl watching her family fight, and,
yeah.
And he's up, he's alert, he's watching it, and all we can see is Theo's head's up. And he's sitting on the chase on the couch, and his head's up, he's watching the TV. And then it's not really a spoiler because it happens within like 3 minutes of the movie or the show starting. Dad dies, and they go to the funeral, and he puts his head down. He just puts his head down. And he's real sad.
Yeah.
And then
he's reading the room.
Yeah, the Christmas music kicks on and stuff during the credits, and he picks his head back up and he starts watching it again. It was adorable. It seems to me like it's going to be a good show. I mean, all of what probably half hour I've got into it. Yeah. Production value seemed good. Everybody loves Jeremy Renner. He's great.
Jeremy's our boy.
Yeah, but also Seinfeld.
Yeah, Haley Steinfeld. She's really great.
Boom,
she's having fun.
Yeah, it's good. Like I said, only half hour into it, but it seems like I'm really excited to watch it. I was going to watch it on my Sunday off. It's like, I don't know. I'm not 100% down to start it. And I started it the other day, and now I will finish Hawkeye well before I finish Cowboy Bebop. So I'll just say that.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is, the sooner you start it, the longer you have to wait for the rest of the episodes to come out. But it's only 6, technically, as of recording now, 3 hour out. So we're halfway there in terms of the episodes coming out, and it'll wrap up like right before Christmas, which feels kind of perfect for what the show's doing. So yeah, we'll talk in full depths on Hawkeye whenever it wraps up. But I'm having a good time with it so far, so I'd recommend checking it out on Disney Plus if you're looking for some more Marvel goodness. The last thing that I've been up to is I've been continuing my read of Frank Herbert's Dune.
Ooh.
And because we had a nice 2-day gap between recording part of this episode and recording the rest of it, it gave me the opportunity to finish book 1 of Dune, and basically not
Holy
the
shit.
book, not the entire book, but the first I guess part. I guess that would probably be the Brandon Sanderson equivalent. There's book 1 Dune, and then book 2 is Muad'Dib. So I just finished the first book part, however you want to classify it,
right.
Which is I think page 248, I think, is what I'm on in my hardcover version of it. So I just finished it. I mean, and obviously coming from a point where I've only seen the movie before reading the book, it feels like it's covered a lot of the movie, most of the movie. Obviously, there are a few things that were excised from the movie. There's some pretty big reveals at the very end of that book 1 that they did not address in the movie at all. Particularly, I think, involving Jessica.
Right. Okay. Yep.
So you obviously know what's going on.
But you saw the difference there in the movie where the big fight happened, right?
Yeah.
The big fight happened in front of all the desert people, all the Fremen.
Okay. I'm not quite there in the book in terms of how they do that. No, it's not really a spoiler because it's in the movie, but basically, I'm at the point where it's just like, all right, well, House Atreides is in shambles, but we're in the desert, so let's go find some desert power. It's kind of like where it's at. But like Paul,
gotcha.
I think Paul kind of has a different characterization. Like once the Duke dies, he's just like, I'm like full fucking mentat. I'm reading everything. Like I'm smarter than you, Jessica. Jessica's a real dumb shit motherfucker, but I know everything. Yeah. So I like his characterization has just changed considerably just in like 2 chapters. So, but it's really good. It's really interesting,
and it's all because of the sand. It's all because of he's
the
wrapped
spice.
up in the spices dramatically altering his character, which is fucking cool.
Yeah. So
you got a lot to look forward to.
You got a lot to look forward to. I think I'm approaching pretty close to where I think Denny chose to cut it off with the movie. Obviously, certain things I'm sure will make it into the sequel in terms of like the plot, like the Jessica stuff, like feels pretty fucking important. So I'm sure that will come up in a sequel.
The Jessica stuff's important, but also like the Bene Gesserit stuff's important too.
Yeah, and we got shades of the Bene Gesserit in the movie, but and like I don't know, there's like a whole like dinner sequence that was cut from the maybe not even shot for the movie, a whole subplot with Jessica and Thufir that was not really in the movie. So yeah, liberties have to be taken.
It makes you wonder where they're going. You know what I mean? What is what's the direction of the second movie going to be?
Right. So even I could have read to this part thinking, okay, this is the movie, and then I'd be like, oh shit, it went past that, but also it didn't cover a lot of this too. Well, not a lot. It didn't cover some of this because it covered it. Honestly,
it covers broad strokes.
My impression is it's actually it covers a good amount of ground, and I think it covers it pretty faithfully overall. Capturing it pretty well. But and again, obviously, I'm coming from the perspective of seeing it and then reading the book afterwards. So it hasn't changed my opinion of the movie in the sense that I think
the movie was great.
The movie was great. I think it's actually I guess it has. I think it's actually reinforced my affinity for the movie, I guess, if nothing else, where I think that like, oh no, this is the movie was like cool and great and I really enjoyed it on its own merits and blah blah blah, but it's also just a good adaptation, and obviously like the reason the story works is because the story works in the written form too. So but it makes me feel like, oh yeah, this is a good adaptation, not one that's slavish to the written material, but one that's very respectful and picking and choosing, I think, the things that they
it's distilled
wanted
right?
to I think that's kind of how I described it when we did our Dune episode just a few episodes ago. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm going to keep reading it, and then it's back to the old Stormlight archives for me, at which point Andrew will probably be into fucking Rhythm of War or some shit at that point. So yeah, I think that's it for me, and I think that's it for us. What do you think?
Yes.
All right.
I was about to say take care now, bye then, but that was too soon.
Yeah, I got to do the thing that everyone skips past, I'm sure. But anyway, thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please spread the word. If you want to support us on Patreon, at patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat, you can get early access to all of our regular episodes, as well as timed exclusive access to any future bonus episodes that we work on. Our website is watchreviewrepeat.com. We're on Twitter at WRRPod. You can follow us there. You can like our Facebook page if you just search for Watch Review Repeats. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, I don't feel like we haven't had a listener's corner in a bit, so send in some things you've been up to.
What you've been up to.
Yeah. Send what you've been up to. Let us know. WatchReviewRepeat@gmail.com. Happy to talk about that. Intro and outro track is Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Andrew and I have not actually discussed what we're going to do for our next episode.
Resident Evil.
Yeah, it did come out. It did fucking come out. You said. I did the editing on this on the What If episode very recently, and you said you were going to go see it and let me know how it is. So
I have not
I'm
seen
waiting.
It yet.
I'm waiting. I'm just saying. I'm waiting. It got some pretty bad reviews, which is not terribly surprising, I'm sure. But there's that. There's Resident Evil. Encanto came out. That's the latest Disney one, which is getting rave reviews.
That looked pretty good.
Think that might be a good one.
Maybe not to put us in the weeds. Have you been seeing the Sing 2 trailer?
I've seen that thing for fucking 12 years.
Does that make you cry every time you watch it?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, man. It puts me to tears every time I see that fucking trailer. Especially the last one that I saw in front of Ghostbusters. I was like, oh, man, this is really pulling.
I've seen the trailer for that and the Kingsman so many times. It's just, I'm sick of both of them. I'm so sick of both of them. I just want the fucking movies to come out so I can be done with those goddamn trailers at this point. That's how it was with Black Widow. It is how anything that was like pandemic delayed like significantly is just like I've seen this trailer so many, like at least give me a new trailer, like recut it, like do something with this. But it's been the same one. They just keep changing the date at the end. Like fuck you, I'm tired of this. But anyway, Encanto is an option. West Side Story is around the corner. So we got things that there's plenty of movies that we can talk about. That's for sure. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what we cover next. Stay tuned. All right. Now you can take us out.
Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Laters on the Menjay.